Sam Harris says Nazis benign compared to Hamas. Is this what is this the call out that you were talking about?
Sam Harris is back in his usual flow of things. We all remember in the post 9/11 era.
Sam, I feel like that's sensational. Are Nazis benign compared to Hamas? I don't know if I would ever make a statement that strong, but like comparable, maybe, sure. But like, that's not even that radical of a statement. This is like a bait for somebody who's going to go to bat for Hamas. What is Kulinski? Oh God, is he going to go to bat for Hamas? Check out his original comments. Sam Harris, Nazis, Hamas. Well, hold on. I imagine he's probably going to play them here, right? Oh God, the majority report responded as well. 24 minutes. Let's see.
Era, there was this rise of new atheism. You had people like Sam Harris and Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens. And look, I'd be lying if I said I didn't agree with a lot of what they wrote. I mean, The God Illusion, I think, was a great book from Richard Dawkins. He was like the least political of them. But Christopher Hitchens, God is Not Great. I didn't like that book as much as The God Illusion, but he used to be a socialist, and then he became...
Hamas are just Nazis without resources in a big nation, yeah? I mean, like, it just depends on what we're talking about. It's like such a weird comparison. Like, why compare anything to the Nazis? It's just stupid. Like, it's just dumb. Well, but it's Hamas. I'm trying to think, because, like, technically, radical Islam, no. Muslims should be able to dominate other peoples and live with them, theoretically in peace, with, like, dhimmi status and everything. Like, theoretically, that should be possible. In practice, for, like, a fundamentalist Islamist government like Hamas, maybe not. I imagine there'd be a lot of religious intolerance. And I don't know if they would be nice to the other people. But, I mean, do the Nazis have a lot of tolerance for other religious groups? Were the Nazis explicitly atheist, or like this weird, they had that weird, they had a lot of weird mysticism bullshit, or at least their books and shit did. I don't know. Well, let's listen. Fuck it. It just seems like a dumb comparison. Like, I don't know. Like, who was worse, Hitler or Genghis Khan? Like, I don't fucking know. Like, Jesus. Like,
he became a pretty ardent neocon in his older years, and he was for the war in Iraq. He kind of like was defending Bush when nobody else was defending Bush. So Hitchens kind of lost his way. And Sam Harris, he was hyper political and wrote a lot about like foreign policy stuff. Torture, of course, he wrote about, and he defended it in during the war on terror in the wake of 9/11. And now he's hitting his stride again, hitting a lot of those same talking points.
I don't want to be...
Now, Hamas...
I think I read that paper that Sam Harris had wrote. It wasn't a paper, it was like an article about torture. And Sam Harris's argument is pretty inoffensive. I think most people would agree with it. Didn't he caveat in that writing that, like, if you could torture a terrorist to produce information that would save somebody from a nuclear bomb or something, or a dirty bomb, I think he says detonating a city, would you do it? And the answer is almost for sure yes. I don't think it was that crazy of an article. I'd have to go back and read it to remember exactly, but...
Hamas is a jihadist organization. In my view, that's all we need to know about it. The question of how it got that way is fundamentally uninteresting, as is the question of why so many Palestinians have come to support it. It would be like asking in 1941 how the SS became so radicalized. And why do so many millions of Germans support it? That's an interesting question now, right now that Nazism has been defeated. But in 1941, there was nothing to do but kill Nazis. I feel exactly the same way about jihadists. In fact, jihadists are worse than Nazis, in my view. They don't have the same power the Nazis had in the 30s and 40s, which is a very good thing, and we should keep it that way. But their ideology is actually worse. Jihadism is essentially Nazism plus an expectation of paradise. It's Nazism plus religious fanaticism. Nazism plus an eagerness to be martyred and to see their children martyred. There are many differences between Nazism and jihadism, of course, but they only make the Nazis look comparatively benign. Nazism was a quasi-religious phenomenon. These people were not rationalists. It was basically racist mysticism anchored to a cult of personality. But the Nazis didn't use their own women and children as human shields. That would have been worse. How could you have made Auschwitz worse? Well, you could have given the guards a belief system that made them feel actual religious ecstasy as they herded innocent people into gas chambers. That would have been worse. And it would have been worse had these beliefs been central to the worldview of a majority of ordinary Germans, and therefore difficult to separate from their other religions.
It's just like, Hamas is really, really, really bad, and the Nazis are really, really, really bad. I don't think we have to compare them. It just opens you up to such weird, like, I don't know.
Beliefs that gave their lives meaning. Right? That would have been worse than what Nazism actually was. And that would have made it harder to purge from German society after we had killed a sufficient number of committed Nazis. As I've made clear many times before, my support for Israel in this conflict is not born of my identity as a Jew. It's not born of my attachment to the religion of Judaism, of which I have none. And while the eruption of global anti-Semitism in response to October 7th has changed my sense of the vulnerability of Jews everywhere, my support for Israel in this war isn't due to a special focus on the problem of anti-Semitism or a special connection to Israel as a country. It's born of a special connection to civilization, to the norms of open societies, to individual rights and freedom of thought, and to secularism and rationality and basic decency. That is, to everything that jihadists seek to destroy.
Okay. I mean, it's not like the worst thing. It's just like, why? It's just dumb. I don't know.
What's happening in Gaza at the moment. And
I just want to make one prediction for this video, though. I'll do it for both.
Sam Harris is one.
In talking about comparing the Nazis to Hamas, Israel is committing genocide. That will come up. And also, if you were going to call anyone Nazis here, it would be Israel / the IDF. At some point, these two things will come up. Guaranteed. 1,000,000,000%. But let's listen. Maybe not.
Man, it is hard to listen to. Like, the stuff he's saying, the analysis is so incredibly simplistic. And I don't mean that in a positive way. It is.
That's too easy. Make a third prediction. We've got Israel's committing genocide. If you're going to call anyone Nazis here, it would be Israel / the IDF. What's the third prediction? I don't know. Israel is even worse since we're supporting them. / we didn't support Nazi Germany. I don't know. That's a third guess. Weaker one. Let's try it.
It's ironic because he would accuse others of being like morally blind or morally confused. I think he is the height of moral confusion. So here he is. He's going to make quite a claim here about Hamas. And of course, the Nazis get dragged into it. Listen to this.
Overwhelming majority of people who are this confused about how to live good lives are Islamic extremists. And the worst of these are jihadists. Now, Hamas is a jihadist organization.
Right off the bat here, that's not really the full picture, is it, Sam? It's not enough to just say, well, Hamas are jihadists, full stop. Like, that is purposefully leaving out a lot of nuance and complexity and detail, right?
No shot. We're not going to go in actually a dumber route. No shot are we going to go the route of like, well, Hamas is the way they are because of Israel. That's not. There's no way we're going that route. We're going to add complexity and degrees of nuance to Hamas. Is that what we're doing right now? No. Also, hold on. When we say jihadists, is this is that like a style of, I'm familiar with like Islamist government or like Sunni extremism or the name of the I can't remember the name of it. It's a style of like extremist Sunni fundamentalist government. It's not Wahhabism. I don't know what the fuck I'm thinking of. I don't remember all the names of these. Doesn't define otherwise is a neologism. Oh, so it's not a real word, but it just kind of explains like militant, predominantly Sunni Islamic movements that use ideologically motivated violence to defend the Ummah, the collective Muslim world, from foreign non-Muslims and those that they perceive as domestic infidels. I feel like I don't like the term jihadists because it paints jihadists as being way more unified in their cause than they actually are. Like jihadists are like ISIS has jihadists, and I'm pretty sure Al Qaeda, the bombing of the World Trade Center and stuff would have been considered jihad and shit. But these people do not work together, right? Why do you guys keep what? Yes, nice. I'm gay. Thank you. Okay. I don't know. I don't like the term jihadists. I feel like I don't see that anywhere. When governments are forming, like the Islamist governments or extremist governments or whatever. But I'm not saying it's a bad term. Personally, it just feels a little vague. But okay.
Right. We're clear on that, right? Like an actual jihadist organization, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, their goal is global caliphate. That's their goal. That is not Hamas's goal.
What does the original Hamas charter say? Original Hamas charter. In the 1988 charter, Hamas states that there is no solution for the Palestinian problem except by jihad. In a 2017 version of its charter, Hamas claimed to reject the persecution of any human being or the undermining of his or her rights on nationalist, religious, or sectarian grounds. Real quick, I don't know what this website is, but now I don't trust it. I don't believe that they updated their charter. I think that was just a statement made by Hamas leadership or whatever, but I don't think it was actually a formal adoption and change of their charter. It's my understanding. Okay, the Covenant of the Hamas, main points. This is a translation of excerpts from the original 1988 Charter of Hamas. A translation, the full document is here. A revised Hamas document of general principles and policies was issued in 2017. Oh, this is the full thing. Holy Christ. Jihad. 36 times. A nucleus is formed which charted its way in the tempestuous ocean of creeds and hopes. Who translates the word tempestuous? No shot. Desires and wishes, dangers, difficulties, setbacks, and challenges. Okay. The Islamic resistance movement erupted in order to play its role in the path of its Lord. In doing so, it joined its hands with those of all jihad fighters for the purpose of liberating Palestine. The souls of its jihad fighters will encounter those of all jihad fighters who have sacrificed their lives in the land of Palestine since it was conquered by the companion of the Prophet, be Allah's prayer and peace upon him, and until this very day. This is the chart of the Islamic resistance, Hamas, which will reveal its face, unveil its identity, state its position, clarify its purpose, discuss its hopes, call for support to its cause and reinforcement, and for joining its ranks. For our struggle against the Jews is extremely wide-ranging and grave, so much so that it will need all the loyal efforts we can wield, to be followed by further steps and reinforced by successive battalions from the multifarious Arab and Islamic world until the enemies are defeated and Allah's victory prevails. Allah has decreed, Lo, I very shall conquer, I and my messengers. Lo, Allah is strong, almighty. Wow. Based. They've raised the banner of jihad in the face of the oppressors in order to extricate the country and the people from the oppressors. The universality of Hamas, by virtue of the distribution of Muslims who pursue the cause of the Hamas all over the globe and strive for its victory, for the reinforcement of its positions, and for the encouragement of its jihad, the movement is a universal one. It is apt to be that due to the clarity of its thinking, the nobility of its purpose, and the loftiness of its objectives. Loftiness. Hamas is one of the links in the chain of jihad in the confrontation with the Zionist invasion. It links up with the setting out of the martyr Izz ad-Din al-Qassam and his brothers in the Muslim Brotherhood who fought the Holy War in 1936. It further relates to another link of the Palestinian jihad and the jihad and the efforts of the Muslim Brothers during the 1948 war, and to the jihad operations of the Muslim Brotherhood, the Muslim Brothers in 1968 and thereafter. But even if the links have become distant from each other, and even if the obstacles erected by those who revolve in the Zionist orbit, aiming at obstructing the road before the jihad fighters, have rendered the pursuance of jihad impossible, nevertheless, the Hamas has been looking forward to implement Allah's promise, whatever time it might take. Allah is its goal, the Prophet its model, and Qasan its constitution, jihad its path, and death, for the case of Allah, its most sublime belief. Hamas regards nationalism as part and parcel of the religious faith. Nothing is loftier or deeper in nationalism than waging jihad against the enemy and confronting him when he sets foot in the land of the Muslims. And this becomes an individual duty binding on every Muslim man and woman. A woman must go out and fight the enemy even without her husband's authorization, and a slave without his master's permission. Damn, that's kind of progressive. There is no solution to the Palestinian problem except by jihad. Look at goals/conclusions. We'll get there. Hold on. I think it's jihad. Okay. The Arab states surrounding Israel are required to open their borders to the jihad fighters, the sons of the Arab and Islamic peoples, to enable them to play their role and join their efforts. The Arab are required, at the very least, to facilitate the movement of jihad fighters from and to them. We cannot fail to remind every Muslim that when the Jews occupied Holy Jerusalem in 1967 and stood at the doorstep of the blessed Aqsa Mosque, they shouted with joy, "Muhammad is dead. He left daughters behind." Israel, by virtue of its being Jewish and of having a Jewish population, defies Islam and the Muslims. Let the eyes of the cowards not fall asleep. Okay. Can I look for objectives? Oh, objectives. Hamas finds itself at a period of time when Islam has waned away from the reality of life. For this reason, the checks and balances have been upset, concepts have become confused, and values have been transformed. Evil has prevailed, oppression and obscurity have reigned, cowards have turned tigers, homelands have been usurped, people have been uprooted and are wandering all over the globe. The state of truth has disappeared and was replaced by the state of evil. Nothing has remained in its right place, for when Islam is removed from the scene, everything changes. These are the motives. As to the objectives, discarding the evil, crushing it and defeating it so that truth may prevail, homelands revert to their owners, calls for prayer be heard from their mosques, announcing the reinstitution of the Muslim state. Thus, people and things will revert to their true place. Allah is the one whose held we see. And if Allah has not repelled some men by others, the earth would have been corrupted, but Allah is the Lord of kindness to his creatures. The Islamic resistance movement, while breaking its own path, will do its utmost to constitute at the same time a support to the weak, a defense to all the oppressed. It will spare no effort to implement the truth and abolish evil in speech and in fact, both here and in any other location where it can reach out and exert influence. Oof. Control F, anti-Semitic incitement. That doesn't exist in here, but nice try. Despite their protestation to the contrary, the Hamas uses Jews and Zionism interchangeably. The thrust of their assault is against Zionism, but by introducing incidentally anti-Semitic themes, such as the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, which preceded the birth of Zionism, they expose their real intent against Jews in general. Oh, wait, this is like commentary, or these are notes on the charter. This isn't their charter. Yeah. A document of general principles and policies. Okay. People say that this is like the updated charter or whatever, but I think this was just like a PR statement kind of thing. I don't know if this is like... Check out Article 22. The powers which support the enemy. The enemy has been scheming for a long time, and they have consolidated their schemes in order to achieve what they have achieved. They took advantage of key elements on unfolding events and accumulated a huge and influential material wealth, which they put to the service of implementing their dream. This wealth permitted them to take over control of the world media, such as news agencies, the press, publication houses, broadcasting, and the like. They're talking about Jews here, by the way. They also used this wealth to stir revolutions in various parts of the globe in order to fulfill their interests and pick the fruits. They stood behind the French and the communist revolutions and behind most of the revolutions we hear about here and there. They also used the money to establish clandestine organizations, which are spreading around the world in order to destroy societies and carry out Zionist interests. Such organizations are the Freemasons, Rotary Clubs, Lions Clubs, B'nai Burith, and the like. All of them are destructive spying organizations, the Jalumni. They also used the money to take over control of the imperialist states and made them colonize many countries in order to exploit the wealth of those countries and spread their corruption therein. As regards local and world wars, it has come to pass, and no one objects, that they stood behind World War I so as to wipe out the Islamist caliphate. They collected material gains and took control of many sources of wealth. They obtained the Balfour Declaration and established the League of Nations in order to rule the world by means of that organization. They also stood behind World War II, where they collected immense benefits from trading with war materials and prepared for the establishment of their state. They inspired the establishment of the United Nations and the Security Council to replace the League of Nations in order to rule the world by their intermediary. There was no war that broke out anywhere without their fingerprints on it. As often as they light a fire for war, Allah extinguishes it. Their efforts is for corruption in the land, and Allah loves not corrupters. The forces of imperialism in both the capitalist West and communist East support the enemy with all their might in material and human terms, taking turns between themselves. When Islam appears, all the forces of unbelief unite to confront it because the community of unbelief is one. But anyway, Jesus. Okay. I should just throw this on my timeline somewhere. Hold on. Original Hamas Charter. Translate the charter into German? Why? So it sounds like Hitler? Okay, anyway, so that's the Hamas charter. They do put out... oh, fuck. What was I just looking at? They have like this a document of general principles and policies, but people always say like they changed their charter. Nothing in here, none of the language in here, I believe, even references the charter. They don't say they're updating the charter. They don't say they're changing the charter or anything like that. Like the founding document is unchanged, and there's no amendments thereof. These are just like the points that they put out to sound good to the public, basically. The PR section, but... Okay, anyway, back to this. Oh boy. He wasn't going to go down this path. He wasn't.
Bad here, that's not really the full picture, is it, Sam? It's not enough to just say, well, Hamas are jihadists, full stop. Like, that is purposefully leaving out a lot of nuance and complexity and detail, right? We're clear on that, right? Like an actual jihadist organization, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, their goal is global caliphate. That's their goal. That is not Hamas's goal.
When you believe as strongly, oh God, this is so fucking retarded. Holy shit. Or I'm retarded. If you believed in the concept of jihad and the expansion of the caliphate and the, we should just do like a study of, oh fuck, what the fuck is the word I'm looking for? If you have the beliefs that Hamas is talking about, the goal is essentially to have a global caliphate, right? If you're an Islamist organization and you believe fundamentally in a lot of the things that they talk about in their charter, is it the Ummah? Isn't this supposed to essentially become like the whole religion of the world is the goal? Like all the other religions are unbelievers or enemies of Islam and don't share the same belief. No, I'm not saying that all Muslims believe this, but I'm saying that if you believe like in this very fundamentalist version of Islam, then I think it's kind of part and parcel of it. Ummah is just a reference to all believers. Yeah, that's right. No, maybe. Isn't the Ummah supposed to refer to like all, like the collective? It's not just like all the individual people. It's like a collective, not like country or something else of all the like the body of all the Muslims or something, but.
They want Palestine to be a country, and they want it to be governed by Islamic law. That's true. But they don't have global ambitions.
I just don't think this is correct. I think that anybody that has, like ISIS, I believe, or Al-Qaeda, like all of these like Islamist, not every Islamist government, I keep saying Islamist, but people of the, what sets you apart in this? And just reading the charter, I guess, it seems like pretty obvious that you have like these global... Fuck, we should just do a religious research stream. Jihadism. I don't think, can't you use jihadism for local stuff and not necessarily have like a global objective if you're a jihadist?
In the same way, like, you know, like the Houthis, for example, putting them on the terror list, it was preposterous because they're not going to do terror attacks against the West because they're trying to form a global caliphate. That's not what they do. They're not like ISIS. They're not like Al-Qaeda. He's purposefully glossing over.
Well, the Houthis are a lot different. I don't know why we'd use the Houthis in the same sentence, but terrorist attacks don't have to just be against the West. They can be against things that are from the West, like shipping vessels. Like, the Houthis have already done terrorist attacks. So, if anything, it makes perfect sense to put the Houthis on the terrorist list because they literally are already doing terrorisms. Like,
West because they're trying to form a global caliphate. That's not what they do. They're not like ISIS. They're not like Al-Qaeda. He's purposefully glossing over very real differences, right? But again, follow the thread here. Follow the thread because he says, Islamic extremists are morally confused, but the worst of them are jihadists. And he says Hamas is a jihadist organization. That's what he says. Now wait until you hear the rest.
In my view, that's all we need to know about it. The question of how it got that way
That's hilarious, buddy. That's all we need to know. Don't look any deeper. Don't look any deeper. That's it.
is fundamentally uninteresting, as is the question of why so many Palestinians have come to support it.
Yeah, gee, I wonder. I wonder why Palestinians would support their militant hardliners. Tough one to figure out. I'm sure it couldn't be that Palestinian babies are getting carpet bombed on a daily basis and Israel is bombing hospitals and schools and churches and mosques and...
I have to, fuck. Hold on. It's... I think that if you're going to comment, I don't even know if I'm 100% fully, because I haven't read the full charter. We just skimmed through some of it here. I don't think that we should be commenting on this. I don't think he has any idea what any of what he's talking about is. I don't know why he is like venturing such a confident opinion out in this area. Like, oh, Hamas, an Islamic extremist organization that draws from the Quran and has many characteristics similar with other Islamic extremist organizations that also draw from the Quran in ways that call for, global jihad and supporting the global jihadist network to fight against the enemies of Islam. Well, that's actually just because Israel carpet bombed Palestine, ignoring the fact that the charter that he's sourcing was done in the 80s. When was that initial charter for Hamas? Fuck, not this one. 1988.
Palestinian babies are getting carpet bombed on a daily basis and Israel is bombing hospitals and schools and churches and mosques and markets.
Was that happening? And was Israel carpet bombing the Gaza Strip in the 70s and 80s? Is that...
places and factories and houses and all sorts of civilian infrastructure. It couldn't be that when you get barbaric, savage, hardline, far-right policies from their enemy, that they run into the arms of their hard-right, barbaric, savage, hardliners on their side. Can't be that, right? Can't be a perfectly natural reaction that everybody has. Like after 9...
I also don't like I hate the equivalence. Like, bro, like we can talk about issues between Israel and how they conduct war. That's totally valid. But where is this weird desire? I don't understand the desire to get on your knees and give the sloppiest top that you can ever possibly muster to fundamentalist Islam. Like, why not just say this is a dog shit ideology? Like, if you had to choose between like a group, like a nation, between one or the other, like Israel is a better country in every way, size, shape, and form than the best country that the Palestinians could put together. We can say that as Westerners. That's fine. We can also say that that doesn't give you the right to blow up other countries and we should still respect the autonomy of other countries and blah, blah, blah. But this cringy false equivalence, it reminds me of like the white people in Seattle that bend down and like kiss the boots and knees of like Black Panthers or BLM people. It's so cringe and self-hating. Like, please, brother, please move to fucking even Saudi Arabia. Move to any of these countries. Move to any Muslim majority country. Or if you're really brave, go to a place like fucking Somalia or go to fucking Egypt even. Or go to fucking to Libya or Morocco, Tunisia. Go to one of these countries and live there and then do like the same type of stuff you do. And be as critical of those governments there as you are here. Keep that same energy. Like, and I'm not even trying to say that like, oh, like if you don't like it, leave. I'm just saying that we don't have to pretend that both sides are the same here. Like, we don't have to do that. Like, we don't have to do that. You don't have to say that both sides are the same to criticize both sides. I think that you can easily criticize the IDF for making mistakes or even having committed war crimes or whatever. You can do that. That's totally fine. That doesn't mean that they're the same as Hamas.
Hardliners on their side. Can't be that, right? Can't be a perfectly natural reaction that everybody had, like after 9/11 when the U.S. got attacked and George W. Bush's approval rating was like fucking 90%. Turns out violence begets violence. Turns out hard right politics begets hard right politics from the other side. That's what happened. Oh my God. I haven't even gotten to the big part yet. Sorry, I'm getting way too triggered. Here, let's keep going. Follow the thread. Hamas is jihadist and...
As is the question of why so many Palestinians have come to support it. It would be like asking in 1941 how the SS became so radicalized. And why do so many millions of Germans support it? That's an interesting question now, right now that Nazism has been defeated. But in 1941, there was nothing to do but kill Nazis. I feel exactly the same way about jihadists. In fact, jihadists are worse than Nazis, in my view. They don't have the same power the Nazis had in the 30s and 40s, which is a very good thing, and we should keep it that way. But their ideology is actually worse. Jihadism is essentially Nazism plus an expectation of paradise. It's Nazism plus religious fanaticism. Nazism plus an eagerness to be martyred and to see their children martyred.
He has a point that Sam Harris was stupid to say it doesn't matter why Hamas came to be, but he goes too far in justifying them. No. Sam Harris is right there, actually. It doesn't really matter in the broadest of senses. It doesn't matter how things came to be. That's the equivalent statement to when I said the history actually doesn't matter between Israel and Palestine, because what you really have is a group of people and you've got to solve their issues now. The history is not really that relevant in a way, right? What happened in 1948? Who the fuck cares? Like, the people now need to solve their problems now. You know, what happened in 67? What happened in these fucking wars? It doesn't really matter. You've got people now needing to solve the problems now. And we can't all keep crying about what happened 50 or 100 years ago in order to make ourselves feel better about the current state of things, right? It's a tad reductionist to say that, but that's essentially what Sam Harris is saying. Sam Harris is saying, like, okay, well, in the 50s, 60s, 70s, it's good to look back and try to understand, like, why did the Nazis do what they do, but like, or did what they did, but like, in the 40s, for World War II, that probably wasn't the right time to stop and figure out, like, well, hold on, well, why do the Nazis want to take over all of Europe and genocide all these people, right? It's just not the right time to do it, and that's not the right approach. They need to be defeated regardless.
There are many differences between Nazism and jihadism, of course, but they only make the Nazis look comparatively benign.
Hamas are jihadists, and jihadism makes Nazism look, what do you say, relatively benign was the phrasing? Let me hear it again.
There are many differences between Nazism and jihadism, of course, but they only make the Nazis look comparatively benign.
Comparatively benign. Nazis are comparatively benign to Hamas. Sam, do you have any thoughts on 41,496 Palestinians being killed by Israel?
Oh my God. And then it's just like the numbers. Oh, kill me.
37,676 of them being civilians, far over 90% civilian death rate. By the way, Hamas had a lower civilian death rate. They killed, depending on which numbers you believe, anywhere between 55% and 70% civilians.
And this, ladies and gentlemen, is why just looking at the numbers doesn't matter. For Hamas's surprise attacks, because they had the ability to choose their targets, because they were attacking by surprise, because the IDF was relatively unprepared to respond, the fact that they destroyed an entire fucking outdoor festival's worth of civilians and murdered everybody there, that's not like what's like the percentage of like civilians to militants that got killed? Oh, well, actually the percentage for the Hamas killed wasn't even that bad either. It was like 30-40%, right? That's not too bad, right? No. That's not how that works. This is why like the raw numbers analysis here is like so stupid.
That's the ballpark. Israel has killed more civilians as a raw number and as a percentage. Any thoughts on that? Any thoughts on 15,370 children being killed by Israel? Any thoughts on Israel?
Children.
Injuring 77,000 Palestinians, killing 136 journalists, which is the most deadly conflict for journalists
The
literally
journalists.
in human history. Any thoughts on Israel bombing Gaza back to the Stone Age to the point where 2 million of the 2.3 million people in Gaza are now homeless? Any thoughts on when Israel announced a medieval-style siege, which is by definition collective?
Medieval-style siege. Medieval-style siege for months now? How many people are dead?
Punishment, where they said we're cutting off food, fuel, and water and electricity to everybody in Gaza because of the actions of Hamas. How many Hamas members are there? 30,000. How many people in Gaza? 2.3 million. They said because of the actions of 30,000, we are going to starve 2.3 million. You want to make any comparisons to Nazis now? How about that comparison? Are you going to address any of these facts on the ground? The 122,500 homes that have been completely destroyed? Or the 269,700 homes that have been partially destroyed? You want to talk about that? You want to talk about 443 schools?
Now we do the performative number reading. Nice. And he even brought up our performative chart. So we can just say here. Why do you hand wave the numbers? What about 6 million? 6 million Jews killed in the Holocaust weren't bad because 6 million Jews died. It was bad because it was the intentional and deliberate rounding up and murder in an attempt to destroy an entire group of people. If 6 million Jews, for instance, happened to die during like the war, like they were soldiers and they were fighting, we'd be talking about that a lot differently than we would death camps. These are two fundamentally different things.
Being attacked by Israel. You want to talk about the wholesale destruction of all of these schools in Gaza. Every one, many of them meticulously blown up in controlled demolitions. Not even a whiff of, oh, there's a Hamas command and control center in something. In all 443 schools? How about what we covered the other day? That around the Al-Shifa complex, where Israel did a massacre and killed 13 children on purpose, they were also looting and stealing from the houses around. Were they looting and stealing things like gold necklaces and things of that nature? Because that's their way of defending themselves against Hamas? 647 mosques bombed, 3 churches bombed, 869 healthcare professionals attacked.
301 healthcare. Oh man, we got a whole PDF here to read all the numbers.
Including 349 of them killed. Remember when everybody was debating that one hospital, which was the first hospital to be bombed? Was it a misfired Palestinian weapon or was it Israel? Well, here we are. 29 hospitals have been bombed later, and people like Sam are not really talking much about debating, hey, who's attacking the... Was it? Even if I grant you that first one, which I don't, 28 were bombed by Israel. You want to talk about Nazis? You want to talk about Nazis? You want to talk about comparisons to Nazism? Look,
yes.
Here's the difference between me and Sam.
Wait, did that count? You want to talk about Nazis? I feel like that's here. Also, did we get to the genocide one? I feel like you basically said genocide. I feel like we were basically there. If you want to call anyone Nazis here, it would be Israel / the IDF. I feel like that was it. I think we get that. I think we get that one.
Nazis? You want to talk about Nazis? You want to talk about comparisons to Nazism? Look, here's the difference between me and Sam. I will gladly and freely admit Hamas are terrorists. You can make a comparison between Hamas and Nazis. I think that's fair. I think anybody that targets civilians on purpose are the scum of the earth. That is the definition of terrorism. That is evil. That is immoral. That is unethical. That is wrong. Anytime anybody attacks civilians on purpose, it is...
But if you're going to call Hamas Nazis, you got to admit the IDF is even worse. Here, it's coming. Tee him up. Tee him up.
Israel does that. The IDF does that even more than Hamas.
I get it. We get to. Absolutely. I feel like he basically said more or less a genocide before, but we'll see if he uses the word.
So if you want to make Nazi comparisons, I'm comfy making those comparisons all day long. Yeah, Hamas are like Nazis. Israel is even more like Nazis.
Are these guys looking for writers? Are these guys, any far left anti-establishment channels looking for writers? I just write the scripts for your shit. I could do this, okay? The chart said genocide, go back, 951. Oh, the Israel genocide in the Gaza Strip. Yeah. I do get that one then. The actual word is there. Boom. I do get that one. And then can we get... Now, you asked me to give a third one because these two are easy. Can I get a third one of Israel is even worse since we're supporting them, and at least we didn't support Nazi Germany. Let's see if we can get to that one, okay?
If you look at all this death and all this devastation, it is wrong. I will gladly and freely admit Hamas are terrorists. You can make a comparison between Hamas and Nazis. I think that's fair. I think anybody that targets civilians on purpose are the scum of the earth. That is the definition of terrorism. That is evil. That is immoral. That is unethical. That is wrong. Anytime anybody attacks civilians on purpose, it is wrong. Israel does that. The IDF does that even more than Hamas. So if you want to make Nazi comparisons, I'm comfy making those comparisons all day long. Yeah, Hamas are like Nazis. Israel is even more like Nazis. If you look at all this death and all this devastation, if you look at flower massacre after flower massacre, if you look at people...
How many flowers have been massacred? My God. Israel's just laying out that aid to bait them and kill them.
Coming out waving white flags who get gunned down and murked anyway. You look at the carpet bombing of children, and you say, it was all an accident. We thought they were all Hamas. It's gotten to the point that is so laughable, over 90% of people don't believe you. Anybody who looks honestly at the evidence, 99.9% of those people wouldn't believe you. They think you're morally blind. You're morally confused. You are phenomenally biased. That's what they think. And they're right. It's so funny. He says stuff like, there's moral confusion all over the place. That defines him perfectly. Saying Nazis are comparatively benign to Hamas. That's what he said. And won't even engage on this part of it. To the extent he would, we already know. We already know everything he'd say. Is there collateral damage sometimes in war? Yeah, it's unfortunate. But the difference is they don't mean it. And Hamas does. I mean, sometimes in war, yeah, we already know. We already know everything he'd say. Is there collateral damage sometimes in war? Yeah, it's unfortunate. But the difference is they don't mean it. And Hamas does. And therefore, they're much more moral. And obviously, I mean, look at gay people are treated way better in Israel than they're treated in Gaza. So therefore, these are more enlightened Western values that they live by. Like, we've heard all these things so many over and over and over.
Are they not? You think the societies, you think the cultures are relatively the same between Hamas and the IDF? I am not super researched, but what I found of the Flower Massacre looks pretty bad for Israel. I'd like to hear your strongest argument against it so I can research it a bit more. It seems, I mean, when you say it looks bad for Israel, I don't know. It's bad. It looks bad that, like, they didn't get the food. Depends on what the claim you're making is. Like, it seems like they were, from what I've seen of it, I don't know if anything new came out, seems like they were trying to deliver aid to northern Gaza, which apparently is a very fucked place right now. And in the process of the convoy driving out there, people started to surround the trucks, and then the situation got out of control. The IDF started shooting to cause people to back off, and then shit got out of hand from there, and then eventually I think the convoy had to leave, right? But that's essentially what I've seen. If you're making claims that, like, the strong claim on the other side there is that Israel brought aid out to bait starving people in northern Gaza so that around a bunch of aid workers and a bunch of Palestinians, they could just start shooting people and killing people at random who are hungry. That just seems wildly fucking stupid to me, but I don't know. Listen, if you believe it.
Nobody is buying the bullshit anymore. They're just not. They're just not. You think this isn't on purpose? I got a bridge to sell you. Because you are the most gullible motherfucker on planet Earth. They're doing it on purpose. It is a genocide.
How did this Hamas simping energy actually infiltrate our people? Because progressives can't criticize brown people, and because of the America bad, basically, mindset. Those are the only two generators you need to power all of this stupidity.
It is an ethnic cleansing. Don't take my word for it. Take their own words for it. Remember, we're the forces of light versus the forces of darkness. Remember when Benjamin Netanyahu brought up the story of Amalek? Remember when they said there are no civilians in Gaza? They're all guilty enough. They could have couped Hamas if they wanted to. They didn't, so they're all guilty enough. From the day they announced the total siege, punishing 2.3 million people for the actions of 30,000, they were making it crystal clear. We view you as all the same. We view you as all guilty, and we're going to treat you as such. An entire group of people. Women, children, all of them. That's as Nazi-like as it gets, dude. But he's not going to engage on that. He's not. Or he'll go to the standard talking points, which have the IQ of a mosquito. But here we are. So anyway, there's Sam Harris for you. Still up to his same stuff. Man, it sure does ring a hell of a lot more hollow now, given this set of facts, doesn't it? Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm.
When Vegan Gain said that leftists were afraid to criticize brown people, you disagree with them, but now you're saying it. What changed your mind? Wait, what? I feel like I've said that for years. There might have been a time where I disagreed with him for a particular instance and not in a generalized sense, but Hamas is now saying that Israel has killed 22,000, not 33,000 Gazans, meaning the combatant to non-combatant ratio in this war is greater than 1-to-1, which would be a phenomenal life-saving achievement. Unsurprisingly, legacy media is crickets. There's no way this is true. I feel like I'd be hearing this everywhere. What the fuck is this article? FDD, Defense of Democracies. I don't know anything about this site or... The Hamas-run Gaza Ministry of Health said on April 6th that it had incomplete data for 11,371 of the 33,091 Palestinian fatalities it claims to have documented. In a statistical report, the ministry notes that it considers an individual record to be incomplete if it is missing any of the following key data points: identity number, full name, date of birth, or date of death. The health ministry also released a report on April 3rd that acknowledged the presence of incomplete data, but did not define what it meant by incomplete. In that earlier report, the ministry acknowledged the incompleteness of 12,263 records. It's unclear why, just after 3 more days, the number fell to 11,371. A decrease more than... Well, this is just saying the records are incomplete, not that they're just not dead at all, right? I feel like we need more in here to say that. Prior to its admission of incomplete data, the health ministry asserted that the information in more than 15,000 fatality records had stemmed from reliable media sources. However, the ministry never identified the sources in question, and Gaza has no independent media. The sudden shifts in the ministry's reporting methods suggest it is scrambling to prevent exposure of its shoddy work. For months, U.S. media have taken for granted that the ministry's top-line figure for casualties was reliable enough to include in daily updates on the war. Even President Biden has cited its numbers. Now we're seeing that a third or more of the ministry's data may be incomplete at best and fictional at worst. How do you even keep track of this shit? It is important to recognize that Hamas is deeply invested in shaping the narrative that emerged. I don't know. I wouldn't take this 100% seriously unless you see other people reporting on it. I don't know the credibility of any of this shit, so fuck me. Oh, History Speaks, our good friend, who's simping for the anti-Israeli side harder than anybody else on Twitter.